One of the biggest stories of the offseason in the NBA this year was the Dallas Mavericks, fresh off of a run to the NBA Finals, shuffling a lot of their roster around Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic, losing Derrick Jones, Tim Hardaway Jr., and Josh Green to add Quentin Grimes, Naji Marshall, Spencer Dinwiddie, and most importantly, Klay Thompson. After a few down years with the Warriors, Klay was ready for a fresh start and chose the Mavs over other possible contenders like the Lakers, and after one game, that looks like the correct choice. There was a ton of skepticism around the Mavs offseason, questions about whether they actually got better or just moved some things around, and most of those questions revolved around Thompson. Could he stay healthy? Would his age be a problem? Could he still guard? And mostly, was Klay Thompson still Klay Thompson? Well, it's just one game, but he did everything he could to answer those questions in Dallas. There's a couple of things that Klay Thompson helps with tremendously. First and foremost for Dallas, and this has been a change that they've really moved towards since they added Kyrie, and that is playing faster, playing at a higher pace. Prior to the Kyrie era, and now with Klay Thompson there as well, they really didn't want to play all that fast. Luka played at almost like the 36-year-old LeBron pace, where he wanted to control everything on the floor. He wanted everything to run through him. He wanted every ball screen down the floor, and he would never really play in transition. And then once they added Kyrie, they've picked up the pace. And now with Klay out there as well, that makes it that much easier because you know he's going to seek out those transition three opportunities. He's going to try and get some of those easy buckets on the break, and Klay Thompson just fits in perfectly with that. He also helps them a ton as a movement shooter. Klay Thompson is not a guy that's just going to stand in the corner or just going to stand on the wing and jack up threes. You can run him off screens. He can get to the mid-range as well, and that is a different set of skills than most of the 3-and-D players around the league have. It's not something that you can ask a lot of the other guys that play a similar role to Klay to do, to run around off screens, to run these different actions. It's just a different level of shooting. And that is honestly the biggest thing here, is if you look at the roster in Dallas last year and really any of the prior years, Klay Thompson is just a different level of shooter from what they've had around Kyrie and around Luka. It's fine to have a bunch of guys that make 35 to 37% of your threes and maybe even a decent volume, and it looks fine. But there is a difference between a guy that's sitting in the corner and getting 5 open threes a game and a guy in Klay Thompson that gets the ball off as quick as he does, that can shoot it off movement, and that puts legitimate fear into the heart of the defense when he is open on the wing. Having someone like Derrick Jones, no offense to him, standing in the corner is different than having Klay in the corner or Klay on the wing, and he forces the defense to adjust. He forces guys to recover to him, and there's still that fear factor out there right now for defenses. And again, even if you didn't think Klay Thompson was great the last couple of years in Golden State, this is a perfect situation for him, and he's looking exactly like what Dallas needed. And honestly, if you look back at what Klay looked like the last couple of seasons with the Warriors, it's not that he was necessarily bad, it was just different. He was forcing a lot more of these tough mid-range twos. It was almost like he was trying to prove to everyone that he was still the same guy that he was prior to an Achilles tear and an ACL tear, which just, you're just not going to be the same guy. It doesn't matter if you're 22 when it happens. It's certainly not going to be the case when you're as old as Klay is. And it's almost like he was trying to prove something. But the other part of that too, and kind of the dirty little secret about those Warriors teams, was they didn't have on-ball creation the way that the Mavs do. Like, Steph is very good. They've got Draymond as a creator and a facilitator, but it's really the offense that creates stuff in Golden State. It's the motion. It's all these screens. It's the split actions between Steph and Klay. It's not a lot of, hey, Steph's going to get a ball screen, he's going to attack, he's going to break down the defense and kick it out to a wide open Klay Thompson. That's just not really what they do. They prefer to have more motion. They prefer to have more movement, which involves Klay Thompson in a lot of the actions. It means that he has to create some of that stuff. He has to dribble into two guys and try and hit a pull-up two over the top of somebody. Whereas in Dallas, they're two elite creators, two guys that create advantages all over the floor, that force rotations, and then all of a sudden it's Klay Thompson standing on the wing with a wide open three instead of someone like Tim Hardaway or Josh Green or Derrick Jones or whoever else they wanted to have out there in previous years. There is just a different level that Klay Thompson brings as a shooter, and also a different level of offense here in Dallas compared to Golden State. It's just different when you have all of these advantages created for you. And like I said, the Golden State Warriors, apart from obviously Steph, who's fantastic, they haven't really had one of those kinds of guys. And obviously the offense wasn't the only thing that people were concerned about. Of course, Klay is an older player, and with the injury history that he has and the financial investment that they put into him, that's always going to be a concern. Can he get through the season healthy? Is he going to be able to still be a great shooter in the playoffs as an older player? That's, of course, a concern. But the other big thing was defensively. Klay Thompson, when the Warriors were at their peak, going on those runs, winning multiple titles, he was an elite perimeter defender. He could stay in front of anybody, had great fundamentals. He was able to get off great contests because he has good size for the 2-guard spot, even though he's not playing the 2-guard anymore in Dallas. That was a huge part of his value, was his ability to play alongside Steph, who in the early part of his career was a terrible defender and got much better. His ability to guard the other team's best perimeter player and shoot as well as he did at such a high volume, that was Klay Thompson's superpower. It wasn't just the shooting, it was the two-way play. And defensively, he just wasn't very good in Golden State the last couple of years. You wouldn't expect him to, with getting older, with the injury issues. And in Dallas, I'm not sure how much that's going to hold up for him. He looked fine in the first game, but overall, they're a little bit lacking in terms of wing defenders. That was one of the reasons why people were so concerned about the loss of someone like Derrick Jones, because their defense was such a large part of their identity last season. They had Luka and Kyrie who could create offense for them, but then they had all this length out there because Derek Lively was so good. They had Derrick Jones, they added Daniel Gafford. They had so much length and activity. And when you're playing Kyrie, Luka, and Klay together, that's one smaller guy in Kyrie who's not a great defender. That's a bigger guy in Luka that doesn't give much effort on defense, and it's an older guy that's compromised from a health perspective in Klay Thompson. And then you're trying to figure out who exactly your wing defender is going to be. And that was one of the concerns for Dallas in terms of the way they move the roster around. And I think it's probably still going to be a concern throughout the season as they try and figure out their matchups. When they get into a postseason series, they don't have Derrick Jones to just say, hey, go and guard Kevin Durant, go and guard whoever the other team's best wing is. And I don't think Klay Thompson is going to be that guy either. So whether that be an addition at the deadline or it be Naji Marshall, maybe they really come to rely on someone like Quentin Grimes because they've been able to rely on guys like that, similar to Josh Green over the last couple of seasons. That's still going to be an issue for Dallas. But in terms of offensively, in terms of what this team needed, this looks like a perfect fit for Klay Thompson and Dallas. And honestly, there's something to be said for Klay as well, just a change of scenery. He spent all of his career in Golden State, had a ton of success there, obviously, but he's probably going to be a little bit rejuvenated, a little bit revitalized, just in a different place, spending time with different guys every day rather than just the kind of comfort that he had in Golden State. And again, I think offensively, the system in Dallas actually fits his skill set better at this point in his career than the Warriors did. And none of this means that Dallas is going to make it back to the finals or anything. The West is absolutely loaded. There are so many really, really good teams, and Dallas had a great run in the postseason last year to get all the way to the finals, and you don't know if that's going to be the case again this year. But Klay certainly seems like a very additive addition offensively, and there's still holes in this Dallas roster. We talked about defensively who's going to be the wing stopper, but in terms of in the front court, they've got Lively and Gafford. That's locked down. In the backcourt, they've got Kyrie, Luka, and Klay as their main offensive guys, and you can kind of find some pieces in the in-between 3 and D wing area throughout the season. Those guys will come available as we get closer to the deadline. So far through one game, the Klay Thompson era Dallas Mavericks look really, really good.